The ultimatum, the emergency klaxon pierced through the quiet morning aboard the merchant vessel, Wanderer's Hope. Captain Elena Martinez bolted upright in her quarters, instantly alert, despite having been asleep only 3 hours earlier. 25. Years of commanding ships in the outer colonies had taught her that emergency signals usually meant someone was about to die. She reached the bridge in under 2 minutes, her boots echoing through the metal corridors of the aging cargo hauler. The ship had seen better decades, but it was home to Elena and her crew of 12. More importantly, it was fast enough to outrun most pirates and sturdy enough to survive the harsh conditions of frontier space. "Report," Elena commanded as she slipped into her captain's chair. Lieutenant Tom Bradley, her communications officer, looked pale as he handed her a data pad. "Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission on all frequencies. Well, you need to see this yourself." The main view screen flickered to life, displaying the image of a creature that made Elena's blood run cold. The being stood nearly 8 feet tall, with dark purple skin that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Its 4 arms moved with precise, mechanical movements, and its 6 eyes glowed with an inner fire that spoke of intelligence and cruelty in equal measure. This was a Korthax, a member of the Empire that had conquered 17 star systems in the past 5 years. People of Earth and her scattered children, the creature spoke in perfect, cold English. "I am Emperor Valdris of the Korthax Empire. Your species has spread across the galaxy like a disease, claiming worlds that do not belong to you, disrupting the natural order that has existed for millennia." Elena felt her jaw clench. Humans had been colonizing space for less than 2 centuries, and they had always been careful to avoid worlds that were already inhabited. The Korthax Empire, on the other hand, had built their civilization on the bones of dozens of extinct species. The Emperor continued, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "You have 7 of your days to abandon all colonies beyond your original solar system. Any human found outside Earth's sphere of influence after this deadline will be considered an enemy of the Empire and will be eliminated. This is not a negotiation. This is an ultimatum. Comply or face complete annihilation." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Elena stared at the blank screen, her mind racing through the implications. There were over 200 million humans spread across 47 different worlds. Even if every ship in human space worked together, they could never evacuate that many people in 7 days. "Ma'am," Bradley said quietly, "we're receiving similar messages from every human colony. They're all asking the same question. What do we do?" Elena stood and walked to the observation window, looking out at the stars that had been humanity's home for generations. Her own daughter lived on New Terra, a farming world 3 systems away. Her son commanded a research station studying exotic matter near the galactic rim. The idea of abandoning everything they had built was unthinkable, but the alternative seemed impossible. "Get me Dr. Chun," she ordered. Dr. James Chun appeared on the view screen within minutes, his normally cheerful face creased with worry. The elderly scientist had been studying alien technology for 30 years and had become humanity's foremost expert on Korthax capabilities. His research station, hidden in an asteroid belt, had been secretly monitoring the Empire's expansion for the past 2 years. "Elena," he said without preamble, "I assume you've seen Valdris's message. I've been analyzing their military capabilities since the transmission began. The situation is worse than we thought." "How much worse?" Elena asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. Chon activated a holographic display that showed the current positions of known Korthax fleets. They have over 3,000 capital ships, each one capable of destroying an entire planet. Their weapons technology is centuries ahead of ours, and their shields can absorb any energy weapon we currently possess. "And the good news?" Elena asked with bitter humor. There isn't any, Chun replied. At least not in terms of conventional warfare. But I've been working on something that might give us a fighting chance. The Korthax have never faced opponents who think the way humans do. They're used to enemies who follow predictable patterns, who fight according to established rules. Elena felt a spark of hope. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we give them something they've never seen before. Human ingenuity has always been our greatest weapon. We don't have their technology, but we have something they lack, the ability to think outside the box. Before Elena could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Commander Sarah Thompson's voice crackled over the intercom from the engine room. Captain, we have incoming ships. 3 Korthax destroyers, closing fast. Elena's blood turned to ice. The Empire wasn't waiting 7 days. They were already beginning their enforcement of the ultimatum. Battle stations, she ordered. All hands, prepare for. The ship shuddered violently as something massive struck the hull. Through the observation window, Elena could see the sleek, predatory shapes of Korthax vessels. Their ships looked more like living creatures than machines, with organic curves and surfaces that seemed to pulse with their own life. They're not firing on us, reported Thompson from the tactical station. They're using some kind of tractor beam. Elena's mind raced. Why would they capture a single merchant vessel instead of simply destroying it? The answer came to her with chilling clarity. They wanted witnesses. The Wanderer's hope was dragged helplessly through space for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Finally, they were positioned in orbit around Kepler Station, a neutral trading post that served merchants from a dozen different species. The station was home to nearly 50,000 beings, including about 3,000 humans. Captain, Bradley said, his voice barely above a whisper, you need to see this. On the main screen, Elena watched in horror as Kepler Station began to glow with an eerie light. The Korthax ships had trained their weapons on the massive structure, charging energy weapons that could turn the entire station into plasma in seconds. A new transmission arrived, this time from the lead Korthax destroyer. Attention all vessels, came a cold mechanical voice. Observe the price of resistance. This station provided aid to human refugees fleeing our justice. Such defiance cannot be tolerated. Elena gripped the arms of her chair so tightly her knuckles turned white. We have to do something, she whispered. Captain, Thompson said urgently, I'm reading massive energy buildups in their weapon systems. They're going to... The universe erupted in light. When Elena's vision cleared, Kepler Station was gone. 50,000 lives had been snuffed out in an instant, turned to atoms and scattered across the void. In its place was only empty space and the slowly expanding cloud of debris that had once been a thriving community. Let this be a lesson, came the Korthax transmission. Comply with the Emperor's ultimatum or share this fate. You have 6 days remaining. The alien ships released the Wanderer's hope and departed, leaving Elena and her crew alone with the horrible reality of what they had witnessed. The silence on the bridge was deafening, broken only by the soft weeping of Lieutenant Bradley. Elena stood slowly, her legs feeling like they might give out at any moment. She had served in the Earth Defense Forces during the Centauri conflict, had seen combat and death before. But nothing had prepared her for the casual, calculated destruction of an entire civilian population. Ma'am, Thompson said quietly, we're receiving transmissions from every human colony in the sector. They all want to know, do we fight or do we run? Elena looked out at the expanding debris field that had once been home to thousands of innocent people. Somewhere in that cloud of wreckage were children who would never grow up, families who would never be reunited, dreams that would never be fulfilled. We fight, she said, her voice growing stronger with each word, but not the way they expect. Thompson, get me every ship captain, every colony leader, every human with the courage to stand up to these monsters. We're going to show the Corthax Empire something they've never seen before. What's that, Captain? Thompson asked. What happens when you threaten humanity's children? Elena replied, her eyes blazing with determination. Get me Dr. Chun and every engineer, scientist, and inventor in human space. It's time to remind the galaxy why our species survived the ice ages, the wars, and every other catastrophe thrown at us. As the Wanderer's hope turned away from the sea, sight of the massacre, and headed toward the nearest human colony, Elena felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Absolute certainty. The Corthax Empire was about to learn that humans were not like other species. They didn't break under pressure. They got creative. They didn't surrender when faced with impossible odds. They found ways to change the rules of the game. The Emperor had made a critical mistake. He had given them 6 days to prepare, and Elena intended to make every hour count. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she could almost hear the echo of orders that would soon shake the very foundations of the galaxy. But for now, she had work to do. The real war was about to begin. Asterisk. The orders that changed everything. 3 days had passed since the destruction of Kepler Station, and the human colonies were buzzing with activity, unlike anything seen since the first wave of interstellar expansion. Captain Elena Martinez stood in the command center of New Terra Station, watching holographic displays that showed the locations of every human ship, settlement, and resource in known space. The past 72 hours had transformed scattered, independent colonies into something that resembled a unified military force. Dr. James Chun had shared his research with every scientist in human space, while Commander Sarah Thompson coordinated defensive strategies with colony leaders who had never worked together before. Status report, Elena called out to her expanded crew, now including representatives from dozens of human worlds. Engineer Marcus Rodriguez looked up from a workstation covered in alien technology fragments. His dark eyes gleamed with the excitement of a man who had just solved an impossible puzzle. Captain, I think we've cracked it. Dr. Chun's analysis of Corthax shielding technology shows a critical weakness. Elena moved closer to examine Marcus's work. The young engineer had been salvaging and reverse engineering alien technology for years, but she had never seen him this animated. What kind of weakness? Their shields are designed to absorb and redirect energy weapons, Marcus explained, his hands moving quickly over the holographic display. But they've never encountered projectile weapons. Physical objects moving at high velocity pass right through their defenses. Dr. Chun appeared on the main communication screen, broadcasting from his hidden research facility. Elena, Marcus is correct. The Corthax have fought dozens of species over the past millennium, but every single one relied on energy-based weapons. They've never adapted their shields to stop solid objects, so old-fashioned bullets and missiles could actually damage. Their ships? Elena asked, hardly daring to believe it. Not just damage them, Chun replied with a grim smile. Destroy them completely. I've run simulations using kinetic projectiles against their hull designs. Their ships are built to withstand energy blasts, not physical impacts. Commander Thompson joined the conversation from the tactical station. I've been coordinating with the mining colonies. They have railguns designed for asteroid processing that could be modified as weapons. The manufacturing worlds are already converting their production lines to create kinetic ammunition. Elena felt a surge of hope, but she forced herself to remain realistic. Even if we can damage their ships, they still outnumber us thousands to 1. How do we overcome those odds? The same way humanity has always overcome impossible odds, came a new voice from the communication array. The speaker was Admiral Rebecca Hayes, a legendary figure who had commanded Earth's defense fleets during the last Great War. She had been living in retirement on a remote colony, but the Corthax threat had brought her back to active service. Admiral has, Elena said with genuine respect. I didn't know you were monitoring our transmissions. When someone threatens to exterminate my species, I tend to pay attention, Hayes replied dryly. I've been analyzing the tactical situation, and I believe we have advantages that go beyond kinetic weapons. Such as? Elena asked. Hayes activated a star chart that showed the current positions of Korthak's fleets. The Empire is spread across 17 star systems, maintaining control through fear and overwhelming force. But that kind of expansion creates vulnerabilities. Their supply lines are stretched thin, their forces are divided, and they're used to fighting enemies who play by their rules. Elena began to see the pattern. You're suggesting we don't fight them conventionally. I'm suggesting we fight them like humans, Hayes replied. Hit-and-run attacks, asymmetric warfare, using our mobility and creativity to strike where they don't expect it. Before Elena could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Lieutenant Bradley's voice crackled over the intercom. Captain, we're detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the system. Multiple Korthak's fleets are moving toward human colonies. Elena rushed to the tactical display, her heart sinking as she saw the scope of the attack. Dozens of Korthaks. Ships were converging on 3 different human worlds simultaneously. They're not waiting for the deadline, she muttered. They're beginning the extermination now. But as she watched the enemy formations, something strange happened. The Korthak's fleet suddenly stopped their advance, hanging motionless in space, as if they had received new orders. For nearly an hour, the alien ships remained frozen in position, while human defenders prepared for attacks that never came. Then, without warning, half of the Korthak's vessels turned and began retreating at maximum speed. What in the name of all that's holy ... Elena whispered, staring at the tactical display in confusion. Dr. Chun's voice came through the communication. System, filled with excitement and disbelief. Elena, I'm intercepting Korthak's military communications. Something incredible is happening. Emperor Valdris has received new orders from someone called the High Council of Shadows. Who are they? Elena asked. I don't know, but they apparently have authority over the Korthak's empire. The Emperor is being ordered to immediately withdraw all forces and return to the Empire's core worlds. There's some kind of crisis happening. In Korthak's space, Elena's mind raced with possibilities. Are we talking about a rebellion? Something bigger, Chun replied. I'm detecting massive energy signatures moving through Korthak's territory. Whatever's happening, it's got the Empire terrified. Commander Thompson looked up from her tactical station with an expression of grim satisfaction. Captain, I'm reading reports from human ships throughout the sector. Korthak's forces are withdrawing from positions they've held for years. Something has them running scared. Elena felt a moment of relief, but her military instincts warned her not to trust good fortune that seemed too convenient. Keep monitoring their communications. I want to know exactly what's forcing them to retreat. The answer came 2 hours later, when Dr. Chun managed to decrypt a high-priority Korthak's transmission. Elena listened in growing amazement as the alien emperor's voice filled the command center, speaking to his own forces with barely controlled panic. All fleets are to return to the homeworld immediately, Emperor Valdris commanded. The predecessor. Artifacts have awakened. The ancient enemy has returned. Abandon all frontier operations and prepare for total war. Elena exchanged glances with her officers. The predecessors were legends, spoken of in hushed whispers by the oldest spacefaring species. They were supposedly the first intelligent, raced to achieve interstellar travel, vanishing mysteriously millions of years ago, and leaving behind only ruins and technology that no one could understand. Captain, Thompson said quietly, if the Korthak's empire is facing an enemy powerful enough to make them abandon their conquest of human space, ... Then we have an opportunity, Elena finished. Marcus, how quickly can we modify our ships with kinetic weapons? Most of the mining vessels are already armed, Rodriguez replied. Give me 12 hours, and I can have projectile weapons installed on every combat-capable ship in the fleet. Admiral Hayes appeared on the communication screen, her weathered face showing the kind of smile that had once terrified enemy commanders. Elena, I believe the tide is turning. The Korthax are about to discover what it means to fight a war on multiple fronts. What are you suggesting? Elena asked, though she was beginning to understand. I'm suggesting we follow them home, Hayes replied. While they're dealing with their ancient enemy, we strike at their weakened positions. We rescue the enslaved. Populations they've conquered, we destroy their supply bases, and we show them that threatening humanity was the biggest mistake of their empire's history. Elena looked around at her crew, seeing the same determination in their eyes that had carried humanity from a single world to the stars. The past few days had transformed them from isolated colonists into something greater, a unified force driven by purpose and guided by the kind of creative thinking that made humans dangerous. Send word to every human ship, every colony, every settlement, Elena commanded. We're going hunting. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity as human forces began the most audacious military operation in their species' history. Ships that had been designed for mining, exploration, and trade were hastily converted into instruments of war. Scientists worked alongside engineers to create weapons that had never been tested in combat. Military officers coordinated with civilian leaders to plan strategies that defied conventional tactical doctrine. Elena watched from the bridge of the Wanderer's Hope as the human fleet assembled. It was not an impressive sight by conventional standards. Their ships were old, their weapons were improvised, and their total numbers were a fraction of what the Korthax could deploy. But there was something else in that ragtag collection of vessels, the unbreakable will of a species that refused to be intimidated. Fleet status report, Elena called out. All ships ready for jump, Thompson replied. We have 47 combat vessels, 230 support ships, and enough kinetic ammunition to level a small moon. And our target? Elena asked. Dr. Chun appeared on the main screen, his face showing the satisfaction of a man who had spent years planning for this moment. The Korthax military depot at Zerion Prime. It's their primary supply base for this entire sector, and thanks to their withdrawal, it's currently defended by less than a dozen ships. Elena smiled as she gave the order that would echo across the galaxy. All ships, execute jump. It's time to remind the universe that humanity doesn't back down from bullies. As the human fleet vanished into hyperspace, heading toward their first target in what would become known as the Liberation War, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that they were part of something larger than themselves. The orders that had forced the Korthax retreat had given humanity an unexpected chance, and they intended to make the most of it. The Empire had made a critical error in judgment. They had assumed that humans were like every other species they had conquered, predictable, conventional, and easily intimidated. They were about to learn that threatening humanity's children was a mistake that could not be corrected. The real war was just beginning, and this time the humans were bringing their own rules to the fight. Asterisk.